The Man Who Followed Me Home Without a Car, Part 1. The man in the parking lot. It started after a late-night trip to Target. Rachel had been shopping alone. The store was half empty, the way it always is on a weeknight near closing time. She didn't notice the man right away until she stepped into the parking lot and saw him standing several spaces away, just outside the glow of a flickering street lamp. He wasn't moving, just standing there. Rachel did that quick glance people do when they feel someone watching them. The man didn't look away. She felt a chill roll down her spine. He wasn't near any car. No keys, no cart. Just standing still in dark clothes, with his hands in his jacket pockets, his face half in shadow. Rachel picked up her pace and hit the unlock button on her fob. The beep of her car felt like a small relief. She threw her bags in the back seat and climbed in fast, locking the doors immediately. Before backing out, she looked in the rearview mirror. The man was walking toward her. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Rachel didn't wait to see where he was going. She pulled out of the lot, made a sharp turn out onto the main road, and didn't look back. She thought it was over. She had no idea what was about to happen next. Part 2. He should never have been there. Rachel lived 20 minutes away, across town, a quiet residential street near a cul-de-sac, the kind of place where neighbors wave and leave porch lights on at night. She pulled into her driveway around 10:15 p.m. and sat in the car for a moment, scrolling her phone. The strange guy from the parking lot was already fading from her mind. When she finally stepped out of her car, she heard nothing but crickets and the rustling of tree branches in the breeze. She got to the porch, dug her keys from her purse, and was just about to put them into the lock, when she noticed movement from the corner of her eye. She turned. A man was walking slowly down the opposite sidewalk. Same black jacket, same steady pace. Rachel froze. It was him. There was no car parked nearby, no rideshare pulling away. He wasn't jogging or even acting out of breath, just walking. Her brain was trying to make sense of it. Had he followed her car on foot? How would that even be possible? Rachel quickly opened the door, slammed it shut behind her, and locked every bolt she had. She peeked through the blinds. The street was empty again, like no one had been there at all. Part 3. The footage. Rachel barely slept that night. She kept telling herself maybe she imagined it. Maybe it was just some random person passing through. She even started to convince herself she was being paranoid. By morning, she almost laughed it off, till she checked her Ring camera. She opened the app while sipping her coffee, not expecting to find anything at all. The night before hadn't triggered any notifications, but when she scrolled back to 10:10 p.m., 5 minutes before she arrived home, her blood turned cold. There he was, clear as day. The man from the parking lot stood motionless on the edge of her front lawn, half in shadow. His eyes fixed on her front door. No car, no bag, just standing there. He stayed for nearly 2 minutes. Then he walked out of frame. 5 minutes later, Rachel's headlights appeared in the distance, and she pulled into the driveway, unaware he had just been there. She watched the footage 3 times, heart pounding harder each time. She sent it to her friend, then to the police. They said they'd look into it, but they never found him. Part 4. Where it gets worse. Rachel changed her locks the next day. She had motion sensor lights installed. She bought a second camera for the backyard. Even started staying over at her sister's house across town. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave. 2 nights later, her phone buzzed at 2:13 a.m. Motion detected. Front door. Rachel opened the app, hands shaking. The screen loaded a grainy, dark image, nothing in view. Then movement. A slow figure stepped out from behind the bush near her porch. Same jacket, same build. He looked directly at the camera, smiled. He raised one hand and tapped his index finger to his lips. She then turned and vanished down the side of the house. The police came within minutes. They didn't find anything. Again, but Rachel never went back to that house. She couldn't, because someone found footprints under her bedroom window the next morning, and they matched the shoes from the Ring footage. The last photo my camera ever took. Part 1. The solo trip. Most people spend their weekends watching football or hitting up bars. I hike. I planned a weekend trip to the Chizos Mountains in West Texas. Rugged, dry, isolated. My plan was to hike up one of the less-traveled ridgelines, set up camp, and spend the night in total solitude. Off. I plugged the GoPro into my laptop. The battery indicator blinked red. Dead. Then I clicked the last video, the one that should have been the stars above my tent. I left it charging and took a long shower. I chalked up the headache and grogginess to altitude or dehydration. Nothing serious, like I hadn't slept at all. There was a sharp pain in my head, and my tongue felt dry like sandpaper. I reached for my water bottle, drank half of it in one go, and unzipped the tent. The tripod was there. This was different. The shot was low, ground level, peeking in at the tent. But the GoPro was dead. I figured the battery just ran out filming all night. You can only see in if the front flap is unzipped. Heavy, wheezing, just off camera. Then something moved barely. A shadow shifted in the bottom corner. The angle tilted a little as if someone had crouched beside the tent holding the camera in their hands. And in the video, it was zipped shut. Yet somehow, the camera caught me sleeping inside. I was lying on my side, mouth slightly open, completely unaware. I packed everything up and hiked back to the car. I'd just bought a new GoPro. I wanted to document the trip. Nothing. I had checked for tracks the next morning without even realizing it. I always do it to habit. The ground was dry, dusty. My boots left marks. No one else's did. Sunsets, campfire. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, watching that clip over and over. Every time I thought I saw more something just past the edges. A reflection, maybe. A shape in the dark. But nothing was clear. Just that wheezing, that shaky breath. My photo from the GoPro. Me sleeping in the tent. Maybe a time-lapse of the stars overhead. I thought it'd be peaceful. I'm not talking about your local state park trails. I mean real wilderness, where your phone has no bars and your screams would echo for miles, I said, panning the camera across the golden cliffs. No sign of life anywhere, just how I like it. I guess that's what I like about it being alone with nature. No noise, no people. 2 weeks ago, day 1 went fine. I drove straight back to the Chizo's range, hiked the same path, and reached the exact spot where I'd camped. I parked at a remote trailhead, strapped on my gear. I remembered the footage. I sat down with a cup of coffee and opened the GoPro folder and headed in. I didn't see a single person the entire hike. By sunset, I was 5 miles deep into the backcountry, far from any ranger station or campsite. I set up my tent between 2 weathered boulders, cooked some freeze-dried chili, and filmed a little update for my hiking blog. I'm out here alone. Before bed, I stuck the GoPro on a tripod outside my tent to catch some stars. Then I crawled into my sleeping bag and passed out. Part 2. Blackout. I woke up the next morning feeling. That night at home the next morning. Most of it was what I expected. Hiking clips, scenic shots, me talking about the trail, but it wasn't. It was me. Sleeping, filmed from outside the tent. Part 3. The footage, at first, I thought I must have set the angle wrong. But the camera was on a tripod and I had aimed it upward, toward the sky. My tent doesn't have windows. It's a single-skin, ultralight model. It's no mesh, no view. There was a sound, too. Breathing, not mine. It stayed on me for 47 seconds. Then it cut to black. I don't remember anything. No footsteps, no sounds. I should have heard someone, right? But it gets worse. There were no footprints. Not near the tent. Not on the trail. So how did someone film me? Why did they leave the camera behind? Part 4. The return trip. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I packed my bag again. I had to go back. I needed answers. Or maybe I just needed to prove to myself that I hadn't gone insane. It was just as I left it, except for one thing. There was something stuck into the dirt. A small pile of stones had been carefully arranged, and resting on top was a photo. A printed photo. Someone had taken the footage, printed it out, and left it there for me to find. They knew I'd come back. And now, they know where I live. My dog was barking at the attic. But I don't have an attic, part 1. The barking that wouldn't stop, it started on a Thursday night. I was brushing my teeth, ready to crash after a long day of work, when my dog, Cooper, started growling in the hallway. The kind of dog who rolls over for belly rubs and makes friends with delivery drivers. He parked himself under the hallway light and barked nonstop. Even when I tried to lure him away with a treat, he kept going back and growling, but this time, he was stiff, alert and staring at the hallway ceiling like something was up there. Cooper's a chill golden retriever. At first I thought maybe it was a mouse or raccoon in the walls, but Cooper wouldn't stop. No attic door, no vents, just that plain round hallway light. I looked up and saw nothing but the ceiling light fixture. Still, something about his reaction gave me goosebumps. Coming from right above the hallway, I stood there, listening, frozen. Cooper started whimpering, tail between his legs. That was the first time I felt genuinely scared in my own home. At around 2 a.m. I heard it too. A faint scratching sound. Asterisk asterisk. Part 2. The Hidden Hatch. The next day, I grabbed a flashlight and a stepladder. I had to see what was going on. Behind the wiring and insulation, I noticed a gap just big enough to fit a hand through. I pulled at it carefully. A wooden panel moved. I turned off the power, removed the hallway light fixture, and stared at the hole. It wasn't just a space for wires. It was an asterisk hatch. As far as I knew, there was no attic. But this was something else. My apartment is on the top floor of a brownstone in Brooklyn. I climbed up and aimed the flashlight inside. My heart nearly stopped. There was a filthy mattress crammed into the crawlspace, dozens of empty water bottles, food wrappers, a blanket, and a newspaper dated just a week ago. He stood still for a second, then turned his head toward the camera. Someone had been living up there recently, like he was amused. Like he knew something I didn't. They said it was probably a squatter who found access through the roof somehow. They didn't find much else. By the time police arrived, the man was gone. No sign of forced entry. No footprints, nothing. I backed away and called the police. They searched the crawlspace and said no one was there now. Maybe whoever it was had already left. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking how long had they been there, watching me, listening. I bought a small camera and pointed it at the hallway ceiling, just in case. Asterisk asterisk. Part 3. The footage, one of the pages had my name written over and over. 2 nights later, my camera sent a motion alert at 3:14 a.m. I woke up groggy and annoyed, thinking it was probably a bug flying by, but I checked the footage anyway. I talked to the building manager, who barely paid attention when I told him what happened or what he wanted. But I know one thing. I asked about the crawl space, about who had access to the roof. No signs of forced entry, no leads. The case went cold. The torn one in the crawl space, it was her. What I saw made my blood run cold. A hand slowly pushed down from the light fixture hole, then an arm, then someone's head emerged. A man, thin and pale, crawled down silently into the hallway. He smiled, not like a normal smile. This was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. Then he disappeared from the frame, called 911 again, except the hatch was open again. This time, the cops took it seriously. They stayed for hours, combing the building and the roof. They didn't find him, but the crawl space had more in it now. A knife, a torn photo of a woman, and a small notebook filled with strange drawings and ramblings. Part 4. The truth above me. I moved out 3 days later. But before I left, I dug deeper. Then I learned something that chilled me more than anything else. 2 years ago, the previous tenant of my apartment, Emily Jacobs, had gone missing. Emily's photo and the man, still unidentified. No arrests, no prints. Nothing. I still don't know how long he was living above me. If Cooper hadn't barked that night, I might never have looked up. And he might have come down when I was asleep. The Basement Tenant Part 1. The bill that didn't add up? It started with a water bill. Emily and Jordan, a young couple who had recently moved into a small Detroit home, noticed something odd. Their water bill, which usually hovered around $40, had shot up to nearly $90. They lived alone, so they called a plumber, who checked every faucet, pipe, and appliance upstairs. Nothing? Finally, the plumber asked, half-jokingly, "You guys been using the basement for anything?" The door to the basement had stayed closed ever since. It was unfinished, damp, creepy. No reason to go down. No guests. No new appliances. Nothing had changed. Jordan thought maybe it was a clerical error.
Ow.
Emily figured it was a leak. They hadn't. They'd never even been down there more than once, just to flip a breaker on Mauvin Day. Until now. Part 2. The mattress in the dark. Jordan grabbed a flashlight and headed downstairs. The basement smelled like wet concrete and dust. He stepped off the last stair and shined the beam around the space. That's when he froze. Buried in the far corner, behind the furnace, there was a mattress. The space heater was using it. It wasn't an accident. It was intentional. A cheap twin-size low to the ground, with a wrinkled blanket on top. Next to it was a folding chair, a half-empty gallon of water, a bag of Doritos. And most chilling of all, a plugged-in space heater humming softly in the dark. Always right after they left for work. Always gone before they returned. Emily came down and gasped. What the hell? The breaker box had been tampered with. Someone had rewired it to route power into just one socket. The man was gone, but his makeshift bed and food stash remained. Police dusted for prints, took statements, and promised to pull footage from neighboring homes. Someone had been living down there recently. He even bought a baby monitor and placed it in the basement just in case. Jordan pulled out his phone and checked the security cam feed they deinstalled outside a few months back, motion activated and cloud backed. Scrolled through the clips. There it was, clear as day. A man in a black hoodie, entering their basement door from the backyard. He stood there, watching them in the living room just feet away before quietly retreating into the dark. He had been living under them for weeks. Part 3. Who the hell is that? A couple called the police. A few neighbors said they'd seen a man matching the description around the neighborhood, but he vanished after the cops came. Officers arrived within minutes and searched the entire basement and house. No one was there. Emily and Jordan couldn't sleep that night. Who was the guy? How did he get in? Why their house? They couldn't stay, not knowing what had happened under their feet, not after watching that clip. The next day, Jordan installed more cameras inside this time. Motion alerts, live notifications. Later that week, while reviewing old footage, they saw something that made Emily sick to her stomach. She never went back to that side of town again. Slept in a couple's basement for 3 weeks. They never found me. The man wasn't just sneaking in while they were gone. In one clip dated just a week prior, they watched him slowly walk up the basement stairs and crack the door open. They had been watched, stalked, and they never even knew. Part 4. Gone. But not forgotten. The police never caught him. They ran fingerprints. Nothing in the system. They tracked the serial number on the space heater. It was stolen from a Walmart 2 towns over. Emily and Jordan moved out 2 weeks later. The new owners of the house were told everything, legally, but they didn't seem to mind. Months passed. Then, in a Reddit thread about the creepiest thing you've ever experienced, someone posted, Detroit, house near Elmwood. The post was deleted within minutes. The account was nuked, but the timestamp matched, and the story was too close. Emily saw it. Jordan still checks their home security fed even, though they no longer live there, just in case. The girl who appears in the Static Part 1, the unplugged TV, started the week the Winters family moved into their new home in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. They were a young couple, Grace and Derek, with their 8-year-old son, Milo. The house was a 1970s colonial fixer-upper with creaky floors. Ivy-covered bricks and a long, shadowy hallway upstairs that Milo immediately called weird. Grace set up an old tube TV in the guest room, more as decor than anything else. It wasn't even plugged in, just sat there, dust collecting around it. They had bigger concerns, settling into their new neighborhood, meeting the quirky neighbor across the street, and making sure Milo adjusted to his new school. But 5 days in, at exactly 2:33 a.m., the TV flickered on. Derek, a light sleeper, noticed the glow under the guest room door while getting a glass of water. He crept in, expecting to find the screen black, but it was static, loud, pulsing static. There was a figure in the blur, not quite clear. A girl, long black hair covering her face, standing still. The kind that used to scream on old TVs when no channel came through, except something was off. Derek yanked the cord. Still blurry, still distorted by the static, but unmistakably there. But the TV wasn't even plugged in. The screen went black the moment he touched it. The next morning, he told Grace. She laughed it off. Maybe he was dreaming. He wanted to believe that too until the next night, and the next. Each night at 2:33 a.m., the TV lit up. Each time the girl was a little clearer, standing in what looked eerily like their upstairs hallway. Part 2. The recording. After a week of this, Grace stopped laughing. She saw it herself one night. The girl in the static, pale face, unmoving, like she was watching them, or waiting. No trace of it, like it had never been recorded. They tried everything and plugged the TV, moved it to the attic, even put it in the garage. Still, the screen lit up at 2:33 a.m. Still, the girl appeared. Desperate for answers, Derek set up his phone to record it. He left it propped up on a stool in front of the screen. Then he and Grace sat in the hallway, too scared to even peek inside the room. The next morning, they rushed to check the footage. Gone. The video app was open, but the file was missing. The same thing happened again the next night. His laptop shut off as soon as he walked in. His phone screen cracked on its own, but on the third night, one frame saved. One glitchy frozen frame remained in the gallery. In that single image, the girl was no longer standing at the end of the hallway. Then he told Grace, "This isn't something I can help with." She was halfway down it, and she was smiling. Her eyes, you could call them, that looked burned out, hollow and dark. Milo started sleepwalking. It's always at 2:33, always toward the guest room. Part 3, the static girl they called in a tech expert and a priest. Both left without explanation. The tech guy couldn't even get his devices to power on inside the guest room. The priest stood in the doorway for a few moments and mumbled something in Latin. That night, the TV didn't turn on. For a moment, they thought it was over. But when Derek checked the hallway camera in the morning, the footage was corrupted, all except 1 second of video. The girl was standing right in front of their bedroom door, closer than ever. They didn't hear her, didn't wake up. But in the still frame, she was touching the door frame, face tilted, eyes hollow. That's when Grace realized something chilling. The background behind the girl had changed. It wasn't the hallway anymore. It was their bedroom. Part 4. 2:33 forever, they tried leaving the house. Packed bags, got in the car, as if the static had leaked out of the TV and filled her entirely. But as they turned the key in the ignition, the dashboard flickered. Sharp. 2:33 a.m., though it was barely 4 in the afternoon. The car shut off. Derek's phone buzzed. One new video. From his own number, he opened it, shaking hands. Holding his breath, it was a clip of Milo sleeping in the back seat. And behind him in the reflection of the rear window was the girl. Closer than ever, face visible now. Lips parted in a wide, stretched grin, eyes black. They couldn't run. That night, the TV didn't just turn on, it stayed on. All the lights in the house went out at 2:33 a.m. The TV glowed, casting white light through the house like a heartbeat. The last thing they remember was Milo sitting up in bed and whispering, "She's here now." The next morning, the TV was gone. So was the guest room. The space was just a blank wall. No door, no trace had ever existed. But every night at 2:33 a.m., their phones buzz. One new frame, one new smile, and the girl. She's walking, closer, still smiling. The static never stops. Welcome to the worst mistakes. Number 4. The Wrong Girl in the Yearbook Part 2. We're recounting down the top 4 most chilling stories from the series, and these tales are guaranteed to leave you speechless. I'm your host, and I'm counting down the top 4 most chilling moments from the series. These stories are part of a series. Let's get started. Number 4, The Wrong Face. Mrs. Howard had been a teacher at Fairview High in upstate New York for nearly 20 years. She'd seen kids come and go, some unforgettable, some fading into the blur of time. But nothing ever unsettled her like the day she flipped through the new class yearbook. She was in the staff lounge, sipping coffee and idly turning pages. The photos were standard, teenagers grinning, awkward smiles, braces, bad haircuts, the usual. Till she got to the sophomore section. Halfway down the 3rd row was a girl labeled Emily Barnes. But that wasn't Emily Barnes. Mrs. Howard taught Emily. She sat in the 2nd row of her English class, quiet, anxious, always clutching her hoodie sleeves, and the girl in the yearbook. Her face was sharper, older, her eyes cold and distant. This was not the same girl. She asked a few other teachers if they'd noticed, but none had paid close attention. Just another printing mistake, they said. But Mrs. Howard couldn't let it go. Something about that face gave her chills. She flipped back and forth between her class lists and the yearbook. The names matched, the faces did not. So she walked down to the main office and asked the school secretary, Ms. Klein, to pull Emily Barnes' enrollment file. What Miss Klein said next made her stomach drop. There's no student named Emily Barnes enrolled at Fairview High. No. 3. A missing name. Mrs. Howard was sure it was a computer error. Maybe someone just forgot to update the system, so she pressed further. She's in my second period class, she insisted. She's been here since September. I graded her midterms. Ms. Klein frowned. There's no one in our records. No transcripts. No emergency contact. Nothing. They called the guidance counselor, Mr. Keene. He double-checked his own logs. No record. No files. Not even a locker assignment. It was as if this Emily Barnes had just appeared, but students had seen her. Teachers had graded her work. She existed. Or did she? Mrs. Howard returned to her classroom in a daze. The bell rang, and second period poured in. But Emily Barnes wasn't in her seat. The chair sat empty. That afternoon, Mrs. Howard cornered a student named Riley, one of the more observant kids in class. Do you know Emily Barnes? She asked casually. Riley blinked. Who, the girl who usually sits here? She pointed to the empty chair. Oh, Riley said after a pause. I thought she'd transferred or something. You remember her? Riley frowned. Kind of. I remember her face, I guess, but I don't know. It's weird. It's like I don't remember talking to her. Ever. Mrs. Howard's skin prickled. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. So that night she took the yearbook home, scanned the strange photo of Emily Barnes, and she did something she hadn't done in years. She opened the archive closet in her garage and pulled out a yearbook from 12 years ago. She didn't even have to flip far. There she was. Same face, same cold stare, same name, Emily Barnes. Class of 2013, the girl who went missing senior year and was never found? No, to a vanishing student. Mrs. Howard didn't sleep that night. She kept both yearbooks open, side by side on the kitchen table. The photo of Emily Barnes hadn't changed in 12 years. Not a wrinkle, not a hair out of place. It was identical. But the class of 2013 Emily had vanished during senior year. One day she was in school. The next, she was gone. Her locker was found open. Books still inside. Her phone was found in the woods behind the gym. The police searched for months. Story made local news, then faded away like all the others. Eventually, everyone just forgot. Except Mrs. Howard. And now, somehow Emily Barnes' photo was in the sophomore section again. But she hadn't aged a day. The next morning, Mrs. Howard rushed to school. She didn't know what she was going to say, only that someone needed to know. But when she got to the office, Ms. Klein wasn't there. Neither was the principal. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. She went to her classroom. Second period came and went. No Emily. Again during lunch. Mrs. Howard walked past the hallway with student portraits, the framed class photos lining the walls year by year. She stopped at the class of 2013. Emily's photo was missing, just a blank space with a crack in the glass. Then her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It read, "Stop digging. She's not meant to be remembered." Number 1. The yearbook room. Mrs. Howard couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, she drove back to the school after hours, using the spare key she wasn't supposed to have. She went straight to the yearbook room, a cramped storage space behind the library. Dust choked the air. Stacks of old yearbooks filled the metal shelves. She pulled every book from the last 15 years. Cross-checked each one. That same girl, Emily Barnes, appeared again and again. Always in different grades. Always with a different name. In 2016, Megan Shore. In 2019, Alyssa Kemp. In 2022, Sarah Dwyer. Same face. Never aging. She wasn't a student. She was a memory. A shadow. A glitch in time, or something far worse. Suddenly, the fluorescent lights flickered. Then the room turned cold. Behind her, a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." She spun around. There, standing between two filing cabinets, was the girl. Emily Barnes. But her face was wrong, now blurred at the edges, like an overexposed photo. Her smile was frozen. "I just wanted to be remembered," the thing whispered. Then she vanished. The lights came back on. The room felt normal again. Mrs. Howard took the yearbook proofs and ran. She quit teaching the next week. Sometimes when she walks past a school, she swears she sees her. The windows, watching, waiting to be remembered again. And that concludes our countdown of the top 4 most chilling moments from the series. Which moment was your favorite? Mine was when Mrs. Howard discovered the mysterious girl in the yearbook who seems to be stuck in a time warp, appearing again and again throughout the years. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The phone call that predicted my car crash, Part 1. The call at 2:04 a.m. It started with a phone call in the middle of the night. Josh Davis was asleep when his phone rang 2:04 a.m. to be exact. The screen just said asterisk, asterisk, block number. Asterisk, asterisk, groggy, and half blind from the screen light, he almost ignored it. But something about the silence of the night, the way his dog lifted its head from the foot of the bed, made him answer. "Hello," he muttered. There was a pause. Then a voice deep, flat, and emotionless came through. "Check your brakes." Josh sat up. "Who is this?" Click. No goodbye. No explanation. Just dead air. He stared at the screen, confused and slightly creeped out. Figured it was a prank. Maybe someone from work being stupid. He even laughed a little, tossed the phone back on the nightstand, and went back to sleep. He didn't realize how serious that call was until the next day. Part 2. Highway horror. Josh's morning was rushed. He had a meeting an hour away and barely had time for coffee. The call from the night before was already slipping from his mind. Just one of those weird things you forget once the sun s up. He jumped into his car, a 5-year-old silver Honda Civic, and hit the freeway. Everything felt normal, till it didn't. He was doing about 65, cruising in the middle lane, when the traffic up ahead suddenly slowed. Josh moved to hit the brakes. Nothing. His foot slammed the pedal again. Still nothing. His car was still moving fast. The cars ahead were almost at a standstill. Panic hit him like a slap to the face. He yanked the wheel, swerved onto the shoulder, and barely missed, smashing into the back of a black SUV. The Honda skidded onto the grass beside the road and came to a shaky stop. Josh was breathing like he'd just sprinted a mile, hands shaking, chest tight. His brakes had completely failed. And that's when he remembered the voice. Check your brakes. Part 3. The call that never happened that night. After his car was towed to a shop and he took an Uber home, Josh couldn't stop thinking about the phone call. He scrolled through his call log. Nothing from 2:04 a.m. The last call listed was from the afternoon before. Nothing in his blocked or unknown callers list either. That didn't make sense. So he called his phone company. "Hi, I got a weird call early this morning from a blocked number, but it's not showing up in my call history. Can you help me?" The representative paused, looked into his records. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't see any calls to or from your number between 11:30 p.m. and 7:45 a.m. Josh's stomach dropped. He checked his phone settings, screenshots, anything. There was no sign the call ever happened, but he heard it. He knew what he heard. He knew what almost happened on that highway. The man with the hat. The mechanic called him the next morning. "Your brake line was sliced clean, like with a tool. Not a wear on tear issue." Josh reported it to the police, thinking maybe someone had tampered with his car. Maybe he had an enemy. Maybe a stalker. But nothing turned up. No evidence. No leads. A week passed, and something stranger happened. He was out grabbing groceries when he noticed a man standing across the parking lot. Just standing, watching, older, wearing a black trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat. Josh looked away for a second, and when he glanced back, the man was gone. That night, a voicemail appeared on his phone. No missed call, just a voicemail. Same deep voice. Asterisk, asterisk, next time, don't ignore warnings. Josh moved to a new city 2 weeks later. New car, new job, new number. He still doesn't know who called him, or why someone saved his life only to vanish. The Funeral Mirror, Part 1. The inheritance, it started with a phone call. When Claire's great-aunt Eloise passed away, the only thing she left behind for Claire was an old, heavy mirror. It had hung in the lobby of the funeral parlor Eloise owned for decades in a quiet Pennsylvania town. The parlor had been in the family since the 1920s. Claire had only visited it once as a child and remembered the place smelling like lilies and wood polish. Her only real memory was the giant mirror by the front door dark wood frame, etched edges, and a strange shimmer when the light hit it. The mirror arrived in a padded crate with a handwritten note. "It belongs with blood. Do not cover it. Do not move it once it's placed." Claire laughed at first. Eloise was always into old-world superstitions. Still, she appreciated the antique and hung it in the hallway near her apartment door. It made the space look bigger. She barely thought about it again until the first night. Around 2:17 a.m., Claire passed by the hallway to grab water. Out of the corner of her eye, she swore she saw someone behind her. A dark figure walking quickly, head bowed. She turned. No one, just her reflection. She didn't sleep much that night. Part 2. The passing shadows. Over the next week, Claire grew increasingly uneasy. Every time she walked past the mirror, it felt like someone else was there, not just in the reflection moving behind her. She tried brushing it off. Maybe it was sleep deprivation, or maybe her mind was playing tricks. Her apartment was old, with creaky pipes and flickering hallway lights, but then things started to change. One morning, she noticed the air felt colder around the mirror. The thermostat read 73, but the hallway felt like a refrigerator. Her cats, Salem, refused to go near it. Every time he passed by, he hissed, arched his back, and bolted. One night, Claire stood in front of the mirror and stared. She even waved her hand behind her to see if the reflection matched. It did. But just as she turned away, something caught her eye. A woman in black. Mid-40s, pale, dark veil covering her face. She walked behind Claire in the mirror, then vanished when Claire turned around. This time Claire didn't laugh it off. Part 3. The video. Claire called her friend Josh, a filmmaker who loved creepy stuff. She told him what she saw, and naturally, he thought it was amazing. "Set up your phone tonight. Just film yourself walking past. Let's see what's really going on." That night, Claire did just that. She placed her phone on a stand at the far end of the hallway, hit record, and walked past the mirror like she always did on her way to the kitchen. The footage was uneventful at first, till she reviewed it. In the reflection of the mirror, behind Claire, a line of people dressed in black funeral clothes followed her, slowly, silently. Each had sunken faces, graying skin, and downcast eyes. They looked like mourners, or corpses. One woman toward the back suddenly looked up right into the camera and mouthed something. Claire rewound it, paused, zoomed in. The woman's lips clearly said, "Not yet," then she smiled. Claire didn't sleep that night. Part 4. The unseen funeral. The next day, Claire researched the mirror. She called the funeral parlor, now run by a real estate firm. An old employee picked up and remembered Eloise. "She kept that mirror since the 1930s, the man said. Used to tell me it was a passage mirror, some old Victorian belief. She believed souls paused there on their way out." Claire asked if anything strange had ever happened. The man hesitated. "Well, a lot of folks reported seeing themselves in the mirror, but ... different. Pale, lifeless, like they were already gone." He went quiet for a moment, then added, "Eloise used to say the mirror knew when your time was near. If you saw the line, it meant your soul had been counted." Claire took the mirror down that night, wrapped it in a blanket, and drove it to a storage unit 2 towns away. She locked it up and tried to move on. For a while, things were normal again. But a week later, she woke up to a cold hallway. The mirror wasn't in her home, but when she passed the blank wall where it once hung, she still saw a reflection. A pale woman in black watching from where the mirror used to be. And every night since, Claire has felt them getting closer. The line is forming again. She doesn't know when her time is, but one thing is certain: someone in the mirror does. And they're waiting. The Stranger in the Family Tree, Part 1. The DNA upload. Daniel Harper was 35. Single and bored on a rainy Sunday afternoon in Portland. He'd been watching a crime documentary about catching killers through genealogy when he thought, why not? He'd always been curious about his roots. His parents had died in a car crash when he was 16, and he had no siblings. His family history was pretty much a blank page. So he ordered a DNA test, spit into the little plastic tube, mailed it off, and forgot about it. A few weeks later, he got the email. Asterisk, asterisk. Your DNA results are ready. He clicked through with mild curiosity, scrolling past the heritage percentages. Nothing surprising there. It's mostly Irish, a bit of German. Then he saw a section labeled DNA matches. One entry was flagged as close family. Daughter. Daniel blinked. Daughter. He clicked the profile. No name. It was an anonymous user. User 143FF9. Estimated age, 9 to 12 years old. Known. He stared at the screen, his heart rate suddenly picking up. He'd never been married. Never had a serious relationship that lasted more than 6 months. No one had ever told him they were pregnant. And there were no situations, no wild nights, or drunken regrets that he could remember leading to a child. This had to be a mistake, or a glitch. But then he received a message from the account. Part 2. The message came at 1:14 a.m. He hadn't been sleeping well since he saw the DNA match. His mind kept spiraling, running through every interaction, every woman he'd ever dated, slept with, even briefly met. The message simply read, "You met her 10 years ago, in your dreams." Daniel sat up in bed, heart pounding. He read it again, and again. At first, he thought it was someone screwing with him, maybe a hacker, maybe a sick joke from someone who knew him. But then he remembered something he hadn't thought about in years. Back in 2015, he'd had this recurring dream. In the dream, he lived in a small white house in the woods with a woman named Leela. They had a daughter, dark curls, blue eyes, freckles. The girl called him Daddy. Her name was Mira. He would dream of them 3 or 4 nights a week. The same scenes. Him reading bedtime stories, making pancakes, brushing her hair. And always this strange feeling that it was real, not just dream real, but something deeper, like memory bleeding through. Then one day the dreams just stopped. He never thought much of it, just assumed his brain was being weird. But now, that girl's face, her voice, the nickname she gave him, Dada, it all rushed back like a punch to the chest. Part 3. The disappearance. Daniel replied to the message. "Or you? What is this? How do you know about those dreams?" He didn't sleep that night. Just sat at his kitchen table, refreshing the page, waiting for another message. Nothing came. In the morning, he logged into the genealogy site again. The match was gone. So was the message. So was the user profile. Like it never existed. Daniel contacted customer support. They checked his account and told him no such match had ever been listed. They even sent him a screenshot of his match history. Clean. No user 143FF9, no daughter. Daniel was silent. He knew what he saw. He remembered the profile, the match, the age estimate. He remembered the words. "You met her 10 years ago? Your dreams?" He remembered Myra. Later that evening, he searched his old phone backups. He was looking for anything from that time a dream journal, maybe. Old notes, sketches, voice memos, something. In one file from 2015 labeled Woodhouse_dream. M4A, he found a voice recording. It was his own voice, talking in a whisper. "Myra just turned 3 today. We made cupcakes with blue frosting. She called me her hero." Daniel dropped the phone. Part 4. Mira. The days that followed were a blur. Daniel stopped going to work. He started researching lucid dreams, shared consciousness, alternate realities, parallel timelines. He joined forums, posted anonymously. No one could give him a real answer, until he got a letter in the mail. Not an email, physical envelope, no return address, just his name on the front, in childlike handwriting. A stick figure family. A man with black hair, a little girl with blue eyes and curly hair. A white house in the woods, and a single line written in crayon. "I remember you too, Daddy." He sat on the floor, staring at it for hours. That night, for the first time in a decade, he had the dream again. The same white house, same pine trees. Same little girl running up to him with arms wide open. Only this time she looked older, about 10. She hugged him tight and whispered in his ear, "They said I could visit you, just for a little while." When he woke up, the drawing was still on the nightstand, but the colors had faded, as if it had been drawn years ago. "She wrote me a letter." After she died, Part 1. The letter from the grave. It started with an envelope. Thick yellowed paper, postmarked 2 days ago. No stamp, just a faded black ink stamp that simply read, "Post Office Box 191, Eldridge Cemetery, PA." The handwriting was unmistakable, neat cursive, the kind people don't write anymore. It was my grandmother's, which would have been sweet, even sentimental, except she had passed away 2 months ago. I sat at my kitchen table, fingers trembling slightly as I opened it. Inside was a short note, just 6 words scribbled in her familiar script. Don't let them take you. Nana, that was it. No context, no explanation. I checked the back. The return address, a Genildridge cemetery. I Googled it. Turns out that cemetery had been decommissioned in the 90s. The P.O. box shut down in 1995. I stood there, the walls closing in just a little. Was this a prank? Some elaborate scam? But no one had her handwriting. No one but her. And she used to tell me stories when I was little, stories about a thing she called the hollowing. Back then, I thought it was just a creepy bedtime tale. But that letter brought everything back. Part 2. The hollowing when I was a kid, Nana would say, if the hollowing finds you, it doesn't take your body, it takes your place. I'd laugh. She'd look dead serious. It watches. And then one day you blink and you're not you anymore. You're still here, but someone else is looking through your eyes. It used to scare the hell out of me. But as I grew up, I chalked it up to dementia, or maybe just her eccentricity. She never talked about it around others. It's only me. Now I was remembering all of it. I started noticing little things. People staring just a second too long, a reflection blinking slightly out of sync when I was half asleep. The streetlight in front of my apartment flickering every night tonally when I walked past, and then came the dreams. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, gasping, because in every dream I was staring at myself. Not a mirror, me across the room, watching, smiling. One night I saw someone standing at the foot of my bed. In the dark, it looked like a shadow made of fog. No features, no voice, just this, presence. It whispered something. I couldn't hear it clearly, but one word echoed. Soon. Part 3. The box beneath the grave, I drove out to Eldridge Cemetery. It was overgrown, half swallowed by trees. The gate was rusted shut, but I climbed over. Nana S. grave wasn't even marked with her name, just a stone with a cross carved into it. I stood there, not sure what I was hoping for. Closure, answers, maybe some explanation for the letter. Then I noticed something odd. The ground around her headstone had been disturbed. Recently, I dug with my bare hands. About 2 feet down, I found a rusted metal lockbox. Inside was a cassette tape, wrapped in plastic. There was a single label written across it. Play this when they come. I didn't even own a cassette player. I had to go to a pawn shop just to find one. When I finally listened to it that night, the voice on the tape chilled me to my core. It was her. Hi, sweetheart. If you're hearing this, they've found you. She sounded calm, collected. There's a thing, a hunger in the world. It chooses people who are forgotten, alone, people no one would miss. I paused the tape. My chest felt tight. I lived alone, no family left, worked from home. I fit the description. She continued. You have to leave something behind, something personal, something real. They can't hollow what still holds love. Then silence, until the final whisper. Burn this tape before they find it. Part 4. Who am I now? The next night I woke up to the sound of my front door creaking open. I didn't even remember falling asleep. I crept to the hallway and saw the shape again. Taller this time, clearer. It wasn't fog, it was me, standing there, in the dark, wearing my clothes. Its eyes looked exactly like mine, except they didn't blink. Not once. I backed away. It didn't move. It just stared. And then it spoke in my voice. You're done being you now. I ran. I didn't grab anything. It's just the letter and the tape. I drove 4 hours, until the city disappeared behind me. Found a rundown motel off some forgotten highway. No cell service. No internet. I burned the tape in the sink. It screamed. Tch. No kidding. The flames let out a sound like metal grinding against bone. Then, silence. That night, I slept without dreams. But here's the thing. Every now and then, when I pass by a mirror, I swear for a split second, I blink first. So I leave this letter behind in case someone else gets one, because if you do listen carefully, don't let them take you, not completely. Because once they do, you're just a shadow with someone else's smile. This is my favorite story so far. I hope you guys enjoyed this short. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. The House That Waits for Tenants, Part 1. The House That Didn't Sell Real. State Agent Laura Kane has had seen her share of weird properties across Ohio, but 113 Sycamore Lane in Fairfield felt wrong the second she stepped inside. It was a charming old two-story, wrapped in ivy and fronted by a rusted gate that moaned when it moved. The price had dropped 5 times in 6 months. No offers, not even walkthroughs anymore, just silence. Laura was desperate to sell it. She needed the commission bad. Her mother was in hospice, and bills were piling up. From the outside, the house looked fine. Inside, though, the paint peeled in strange patterns, almost like claw marks. The floors creaked, not just with her steps, but sometimes half a beat behind them, like something else was walking just a second too late. But the worst part was the door frames. All of them bedrooms, closets, even the pantry had deep gouges around the inside, as if someone had tried to lock something in or out. Still, she tried to convince herself it was just wear and tear, a fixer-upper, no big deal. Then she went upstairs. In the master bedroom, nailed flat to the wooden floorboards, was a torn piece of paper, yellowed with age and warped from water damage. 5 words were scrawled across it in shaky red ink. It only wakes up when someone signs the lease. Part 2. What happened to the Carters? Laura went home, shaken. She dug into the house's history that night. The last owners were the Carters Daniel, Marie, and their 2-year-old daughter. Ellie, they'd moved in 3 years ago, and then they vanished. The report was vague. The neighbors filed a missing persons call after no one had seen them in over a week. When police arrived, the front door was wide open. They found little Ellie sitting in her crib, crying and dehydrated but alive. There was no sign of Daniel or Marie. No blood, no forced entry, no packed bags, nothing. It was like they had simply ... evaporated. What chilled Laura most was what was found in the attic. Claw marks again, but this time inside a sealed wooden chest. The edges of the chest were chewed down to splinters. Underneath it, scrawled in chalk, was one word: stay. She tried to ignore the feeling in her gut, tried to rationalize it all, but something about the house felt predatory. As if it didn't want a buyer, it wanted a tenant. Part 3. The lease. Despite everything, Laura kept the listing. Bills were still due. Her phone was filled with voicemails from debt collectors. So when a young couple from Cincinnati, the Turners, expressed interest and asked to tour the property, she agreed. She didn't tell them about the note or the Carters, just walked them through, room by room, swallowing her anxiety with every creak of the floorboards. They were eager. Said it had charm. Said the price was a steal. Said they could move in next week. The moment they signed the lease on the kitchen counter, the whole house seemed to exhale, like it had been holding its breath. That night, Laura had a nightmare. She was inside the house, only this time the walls pulsed like they were breathing. She heard scratching, endless furious scratching from the inside of the walls. Something was trying to get out, or in, and in the dream she heard a voice whisper, "Now that they belong to me, so do you." She woke up gasping, sweat-soaked, her fingernails filled with wood splinters she couldn't explain. Part 4. The house is waiting again. 3 weeks later, the Turners stopped responding. No emails, no texts. Their social media accounts went dead. Laura drove to the house, heart pounding. She found the front door ajar. Inside, it was dead silent. The lights worked, the furniture was untouched. Dinner plates still sat on the table, half-eaten. One glass of red wine had spilled, seeping into the hardwood floor like blood. Upstairs, in the nursery they had set up for their unborn child, a single item sat in the crib: the lease. Burned at the edges, torn down the middle. And below it, in that same red ink Laura had seen before, were the words: "It sleeps until the next one signs." She backed out of the house slowly. She didn't call the police. She didn't report anything. She just updated the listing online and dropped the price again. The house is still waiting. And now Laura knows. It doesn't want to be sold. It wants to be fed. I saw my friend. On the news, Part 1. The Wave. It was a Friday night on campus, and the air smelled like cheap beer and excitement. Students were pouring into bars and dorm parties. I was heading back to my dorm after a late cram session at the library. Tired, hungry, and barely paying attention to my surroundings, I passed Brew Hall. the local dive bar known for karaoke disasters and $2 whiskey shots. That's when I saw Josh. He was standing outside the bar entrance in that old denim jacket he always wore, with his headphones dangling around his neck. Same goofy grin, same unkempt hair. I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks, so I lit up and raised my hand. "Yo, Josh," I called out. He looked right at me, but didn't wave back. She kept smiling, like he was posing for a photo I couldn't see. Then he turned and walked inside the bar. Weird, but not the weirdest thing Josh had ever done. He was always kinda out there. I figured he was tipsy, high, or both. I pulled my jacket tighter and walked back to my dorm. I didn't know yet that I'd just waved to a dead man. Part 2. The news. I woke up the next morning to dozens of missed calls, texts, and group chat chaos. "Did you hear about Josh? Dude, WTF, check the news. I'm so sorry. I thought you two were close." Confused and half awake, I tapped on a local news link someone sent. Body found in campus dumpster. Victim identified as 21-year-old Josh Miller. Time of death: approximately 5:30 p.m. yesterday. I froze. That couldn't be right. I saw Josh around 9 p.m., clear as day, walking into Brew Hall. I waved to him. He looked right at me, but the news was adamant. Josh had been found dead by a janitor at 11 p.m., beaten, face swollen, limbs twisted. His phone was shattered and his wallet missing. The medical examiner placed the time of death several hours before I saw him. Impossible. My first instinct was denial. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it wasn't Josh. But that smile, that jacket, no way I'd confuse him for someone else. I was shaken, but convinced the cops had their timeline wrong. That changed the moment. Campus security footage went viral. Part 3. The footage, a few days later. Someone on Reddit leaked footage from a campus security cam pointed at Brew Hall's entrance. It showed Josh. Timestamp: 9:03 p.m. He walked into the bar, slowly, smiling. Calm. Same denim jacket. Same relaxed swagger. And then, nothing. No footage of him ever walking out. Not 5 minutes later. Not an hour later. Not at all. People on social media started noticing something else too. In the footage, Josh's reflection didn't appear in the bar's glass windows. The shadow he cast didn't match the others. It bent in the wrong direction. Some started calling it a glitch. Others said it was a deep fake. I knew what I saw. I waved to Josh. He looked at me like he was saying goodbye. That footage tore a hole in my reality. Because if Josh really had been dead hours earlier, then what the hell did I see? Part 4. The smile. I couldn't sleep. Kept watching the video over and over. Something about Josh's smile was off. It wasn't happy. It wasn't even human. It looked rehearsed. Like a puppet forced to smile. Then I got a DM from someone anonymous. No profile pic. No name. He was already gone when you saw him, but something else was wearing his face. I closed the message, heart racing. My mind screamed at me to ignore it. Move on. But something inside me couldn't let it go. I started digging, talking to people. A bartender at Brew Hall said he never saw Josh that night. Another girl swore she saw someone like Josh standing behind her in the alley near the bar, just watching, not moving, not blinking, and when she turned around, he was gone. The campus held a memorial the following week. Everyone cried, shared photos, told stories. I didn't go, because I'd already said goodbye. I still pass Brew Hall sometimes. I avoid looking too closely at the entrance, but now and then I feel eyes on me, like someone's watching, smiling, waiting for me to wave.